Good evening, everyone. It's lovely to have you here. Panel three is all about classroom books. So we've gone from leading schools to school-wide themes to what is happening in the classroom. I'm going to ask each of you firstly to introduce who you are, where you are, what you do. So Helen, do you want to go first?
I'm Helen. I live in the dizzy heights of Troy Vegas, so draw a line between Bath and Stonehenge, and I'm on that line near a Bath. I do dyslexia stuff. I write assessments. I talk at people about it and do stuff in that space. I'm doing a Churchill fellowship, so that's me.
Awesome, thank you, Helen. Morgan, good evening. It's lovely to have you here. What time zone are you on? Remind me where you are, what time it is.
It is 1:52 in the morning where I am.
Oh my bloody God, I feel bad for asking you now, babe. Tell us where you are.
I've been so excited about this. I stayed up late and got to read some books actually, and now I'm quietly in my kitchen downstairs. So right now I'm in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam, where I'm currently working. But I'm a consultant and a senior leader and an author, and I work all over the world, but right now based in Southeast Asia.
But you better tell people where your accent's from.
Canada? Oh, Canadian. So I'm Canadian, but I've taught all over. I've taught in the UK. I spent 12 years in the Middle East before settling down in Vietnam for a little bit.
It's great to have you here. Thank you so much for keeping awake. I met Morgan when I was out at a conference in Dubai, and I've been following her travels ever since. So Morgan, it's fab to have you here. And Zahara, good evening. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Zahara. I am an inclusive education lead in higher education, but my background is in teaching, and I'm also a Belonging Effect associate. So I work across schools as well, and other organisations on belonging, diversity and inclusion. So that's me.
It's fab to have you all here. So I'm going to ask each one of you to share your journey, really, of finding your voice, putting pen to paper, finding a publisher, getting your book birthed. And Helen, you're up first. If you've got a copy of your book, please do flash it at us as well.
You go first. There's my book.
I go alphabetical by first name, Helen. You can do it, darling. Go on.
No, never first. I was always bang in the middle. That's my book. What was the question? What was the question?
So, how did your book come to being? How did you get the idea? How did you get the publisher? What's the journey that you took?
I entirely blame Georgina Durrant for this. I met her. I don't even know how. I met her because she needed some help about dyslexia, and we met on Twitter. And I don't know. We had a chat and kind of clicked. I love Georgina. She's a really lovely lady. And we chatted once, and she's like, "You need to write a book." And then she started like being like a woodpecker on my head going, "You need to write a book." So I had a bit of a brain fart, thought about it. And then I somehow or other, and I can't remember how, had Claire Ashworth's contact details. So I pinged Claire a message going, or maybe she messaged me. I genuinely don't know. I've slept since I did the process. But Claire and I chatted, and she sort of said, "What's your idea?" We talked it through. And then she and Georgina made me write like a proposal. So I did. They did that thing where they like talk it through, you modify it, and they did apparently they have to like present it to the board of book commissiony editor people. I'm so helpful and technical with this, aren't I? And then they liked it. Then I wrote it. Yeah. That's not very helpful.
No, it is really helpful. I'm doing notes to myself of things to come back to. So thank you for sharing your journey, and shout out to Georgina for making you even think it was possible then and getting you lined up. Morgan, how about you? Tell us about your journey to becoming an author.
Well, I think it's a lot like Helen, actually. It was like a friend who said, "You have something to say, you need to say it." So I was working in Abu Dhabi at the time, and I was sharing an office with Kate Jones, who wrote all the retrieval practice books. Like, Kate's just amazing. And I said, I got into a talk with a colleague one day, and he said, "Well, we shouldn't really do it like that because it's not best practice." And I remember thinking, "Oh, you're just saying that. You haven't done the research." So it was like, I was just kind of like, and I remember just being stuck at the time because I'm like, there's so much to say on this topic. And there's so much that I want to kind of like a message that I kind of want to encapsulate, but it just felt too big. So I remember talking to Kate about that, and she's like, "Write it down." So I wrote it down, and then she's like, "I'm putting you in touch with my publisher." She got in touch with her publisher, and then over the weekend, they then got back to me with a book deal. And yeah, it just felt like it felt like it had been waiting inside of me for a long time to say something, but she had kind of drawn it out. And then it took 2 years to write, and my publisher was amazing, giving me the space to really kind of take this idea and really drill down into the specifics to like make a really coherent argument. So it was a really supportive process every single step of the way. And then Kate later wrote the introduction to the book, which was so kind. Yeah.
Love that. Do you want to just flash your book up and just tell everyone
Yeah, of course.
what's your book about? What's the premise of your book?
So my book is called Gifted, The Shift to Enrichment, Challenge, and Equity. And the book is really about the question mark on gifted and how important that question mark is. The disagreement that I got in over a colleague was the idea of what gifted looked like. And I don't believe that giftedness has a look. And I really wanted to challenge the idea of ability structures in schools. I find them really oppressive, and that they actually exacerbate a lot of cyclical inequality and social immobility. So the book is all about kind of taking that apart and saying, well, how do we create really inclusive, dynamic classrooms where challenge is at the heart of the journey for every single student?
I love that. Did the colleague read it? I'm interested with the person you had the conversation with. Have they read
Do you
it?
know what? I hope it's in their library.
They might have read your book to get a better argument next time.
I think like most women, sometimes we're like, I had all the best intentions, but I really did it out of spite.
I love that. Whatever makes us get printed, hey. And Helen, do you want to flash your book and tell us about what you birthed?
Yeah, so my book is called I need to look at the title there, Creating Belonging in the Classroom. And do you want me to say what it's about? Or yeah, so the book is very much like in the title, it's about creating belonging in your classrooms, but it's a bit deceptive because I've always seen, like, my story into writing is quite weird, but I've always seen the classroom as a microcosm of the entire education system. So when I started consultancy back in 2017, I remember doing a well-being session around it and calling it a microcosm of the education system. And so the book, whilst it's called Creating Belonging in the Classroom, and very much around candid conversations, relational practice, building elements of like cultural intelligence into your teaching practice, very practical advice, sort of steering away from what education I think is almost has too much of, which is research, which I say ironically because I am also doing a master's. There are several there are several chapters on building your value system across a school culture, how leadership can approach belonging, because again it's kind of moving outwards, and that's been probably some of the best feedback I've had about the book, that people have approached it seeing it as for the classroom, but they've been really pleasantly surprised at how I've built it in as that microcosm of that bigger picture.
And how did you get to print then? How did you find a publisher and do the journey?
Yeah, so my journey is quite interesting. So I actually left teaching a little while ago, and I went into PR for fitness professionals. And so my first experience of, like, I've always been blogging. So I've been blogging for quite a while now, almost 10 years in various forms. A lot of it started in the fitness space because I also qualified as a personal trainer when I was teaching. So a lot of my writing then wasn't education related. It was fitness education related. I then actually ghost wrote 2 books in fitness for fitness and health, and that was such an amazing. It was with Bloomsbury, it wasn't Bloomsbury, it was through Hachette, like the wider. I don't know whether I can say any more than that because when you're a ghostwriter you have to, but like the literary agent who I worked with, Jenny Heller, we've actually never met, like we've never met in person, but she pretty much became like a best friend coach person as I was navigating a completely new market. And I remember telling her about my background in education, and she said to me, you have to write a book one day. And I just, at that point, I was like, not at all. But it was all of that coaching from her that I was like, okay, maybe this will happen. And then I was actually asked to review Sarah Wordlaw's book, the primary education one. And on the call, Joanna Ramsey at Bloomsbury said, "Do you have any ideas?" And I said, "Well, actually, I do." And then I shared, and then just like what Morgan and Helen said, it went along that process. And I remember getting the email which said, "Congratulations, your proposal's been accepted by the board." And that was like 3 years ago now. And the book was published last August.
But similar to Natasha, you also had a baby.
Oh, yes.
You made a book and a baby.
Which one? Which baby, Hannah? This one?
You were quite busy, weren't you? You had multiple things being created at the same time.
Yeah. And when I signed up to the book, I think I just had Iman. So I've got 3, and I just had Iman as well. So yeah, I think so. I can't remember really.
It's all a blur, which is
but we got it done.
You got it done, and I'm looking to link back to Sarah on the previous panel as well. So one of the threads with this panel then is this idea of like the tap on the shoulder, or the kind of like someone saying you've got a book in you. Why haven't you written a book? And then the kind of the accountability buddy that comes with that. So I'm really curious about that. Helen, if Georgina hadn't said like do a book, was there honestly not a book inside you? Was it a long-term plan, or?
There probably would have been, but I wouldn't have known how to do it. And I don't know if I would have done something. I'm sure it would have taken me longer. I'd have probably had more strops about it and been an awful lot more difficult to live with. I mean, the husband is a patient man. He's a very brave, patient man. There's a fine line between brave, patient, and stupid, and he rides that line every day. But yeah, it would have been not knowing the process. And I've got a PhD. I'm not a complete plonker. I can do research and find processes out, but it's so far out my comfort zone. And it would have fallen down the list of things to do, I think. Not because I would want to, but just life happens.
Yeah. And I'm wondering now whether you're going to pay it forward, pass it on. Have you tapped anyone else on the shoulder to put pen to paper?
Oh, God. There is somebody for years. I've known her since I worked in Barnsley, and which is sort of, if you're not in the UK, it's quite a complicated area of the UK. If you're in the States, it's a bit like Pittsburgh and Steel City, that kind of stuff, where, just difficult demographics there. The school receptionist there, I would read her memoirs. She was absolutely wonderful. And every time we message on the socials, I'm like, write your book. And just there's a couple of people I have, because they're not daft, they're sensible, they're so clever, but they don't see it. And I think for women, it's not seeing it as well. Like, women will kind of minimize themselves. So I try and kick people at the bum as much as I can, kindly, not actually to hurt them, but just to be like, you can do it.
Yeah, that tap on the shoulder, that nudge, isn't it? It's really interesting which direction it comes from. So Morgan, coming back to you, I think there's also a link here between all 3 of you about almost like an extension of a conversation, a dialogue. Like you talk at events, you also blog. How did you extend that into a book, and how did that shape your voice as an author?
I think, honestly, the book, like I said, it took me 2 years to write, and I had, just like Zahara, I had 3 little ones. And I was really, really lucky because I was in Abu Dhabi and we had Friday afternoons off when I didn't have to be teaching. And those just became precious writing time for me. So I had that Friday, every single Friday, that was completely mine, that I knew was mine, where my husband, who was lovely, would take the kids, and I got that time to write and research. And it became this like place where I looked forward to having that time every single week to write. But also it became so much of my identity outside of like my job at work, my identity outside of being a mom. I really got to discover what I meant. So there were things that I kind of intuited, but I needed to research and then write it and rewrite it and then throw it out and write it again in order to like articulate exactly what I meant. And so the book, it really has been transformative because it's shaped my voice and my identity. I'm more sure in things now than I was before. I'm also I feel like I've positioned myself and my identity with a philosophy that perhaps I kind of knew the edges of before, but now I feel like fully formed. So the book itself, it is a journey because it helps create you. It makes you kind of full-throatedly back up some thoughts that you may have had. And it really helps kind of, I don't know, it's given me something beyond my job about education that I fully love. And I think it's taken me to new places because of that. It's been such a great journey.
No, I love that. And I love the idea of a weekly practice or a weekly kind of habit. Was that a whole academic year? How long was your journey?
Sorry, was that for me?
Yeah, sorry, Morgan. Coming back to you, like how long did it take? And was it every week for a whole school year, or?
Yeah, and then there were some weeks. So there were some weeks that I had a week off, and I checked myself into a hotel room for a few weeks and just wrote straight so that I could actually go uninterrupted. And those became like, it was really intensive. Like this was time that it felt like this was self-care. I think some people are like, oh, like I go running, like, or I'll meditate. And like, for me, like writing was something that this was completely me time. It was so selfish and wonderful. And I think sometimes you think like, what do you do for your hobby? And I'm like, my job is my hobby, but my job isn't my job. It's something that I'm so passionate about. Like, this is something that I care about and I'm so interested in. There's always new things coming out and new things to read. And the book kind of metastasizes because of that. And it goes into new places and you learn new things. So it opened up so many doors and it became not what I first intended. The first like outline, it very quickly fell away and became something different, but in the best way.
I love that, and writing is catharsis. It's such a healing process, isn't it? Zahara, I mean, you've obviously got a big podcast as well. I'm curious about the link between the conversations you had on your podcast and how that then pulled into your book, because sometimes people we talk about journaling tonight, LinkedIn, blogging. Talk about the link with the podcast.
Oh yeah, there's a direct link. It was effectively the podcast that led to the book. So those candid conversations, and the podcast came from my students. So it was my students who said, "Miss, you need to start a podcast." And at that time, I was like, I don't have a clue what a podcast is. And then they taught me how to blog. One of them showed me how to podcast. Basit Siddiqui. He taught me fully how to like upload a podcast and how to curate it. And it was the conversations on the podcast, which some are with students. So some of them are with students, and the book is very much focused on student voice, and that kind of creating that sense of belonging for children. So yeah, it very much did focus on the conversations from the podcast fed into the book.
I love that. I love the fact that students taught you how to do all those technical skills as well. And some of your students came to talk at your book launch.
Yeah, they did. They did.
Do you want to say a little bit about that full circle moment?
Yeah, no, I can't rate the book is dedicated to my students as well. Like I can't rate them enough. Like they changed my life in the best way possible. Like I left teaching, I then came back to teaching, and I went to one very particular school where even now, if I was to return to the classroom, I'd want a job at that school. And interestingly, it has a very high retention rate for staff. It's a fantastic school, and the kids were just very special. They were just brilliant, and yes, they have wholeheartedly supported my journey, even when I left them mid-year to go become a personal trainer, and they were like, yeah, miss, go live your dream. It's really, they were just the best. They're the best. The kids are the best. And they taught me relational practice, like I don't think I would have known what that was if it wasn't for them. So the book is absolutely credited to professionals across that I, like you, Hannah, like so many people who have amplified my work and made me amplify my own work. Like Hannah led my book launch. I would never have done one if it wasn't for Hannah. But it's the kids that wrote that book, not me.
I love that. Beautiful. We're going to do a very quick round before I wrap up. What's one tip for the people listening tonight about getting started? Like, Helen, is there one thing, one bit of pearl of wisdom you'd like to share with the audience?
Plan it. I didn't write on a schedule. I wrote when I had time, and then burn the candle in end dimensions because I'm an idiot and shouldn't be in charge of my own diary. But I've got X amount of time. I've got X amount of chapters. And I did it with my PhD. I do it with everything. This is the time. This is what I need to get done. This is how long I've got to do it. It's project management. It's very boring, but Lordy, it meant I got it done. And it wasn't scary because it was 500 words here, 200 words there, and it made it palatable and edible. What's the word? Bite-sized. That was the word.
Bite-sized. Chunked it. I love that. Thank you. Morgan, what's your one tip or call to action for everyone?
capture things in the moment. So many bits of my book were based on something that a student had said to me, or a conversation that I had with a staff member in the hallway. And I would immediately have this notes app in my phone where I wrote down a fragment of that conversation, a keyword, an idea, something that then made its way into the book. So my phone is now full with so many just little tiny moments that then create a fuller, richer picture of what everything looks like in practice.
I love that. And that's what Dwight opened with, this idea of documenting and sort of like building up the narrative. Thank you, Morgan. Zahara, what's your one quick tip?
1 to 200 words a day. That's it. 1 to 200 words a day. That's what Hira Ali told me when I called her about taking on the contract. And she was like, Zahara, 1 to 200 words a day. And that was probably the best advice I could give anyone.
No, I love that. Little and often. Do you all want to just hold up your books one more time so the audience can see what you have created collectively? Well done, ladies. Very proud of you all. 3 brilliant books around the classroom. So do have a look at them. You may now go to bed, Morgan. Go and have your dinner, Zahara, and go and walk the dogs, Helen, or whatever it is you're all doing tonight. Lovely to see you all. Thank you very much, and I'll see you all soon.
Thanks, Hannah.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.